Okay, confession time. Until pretty recently, I've never actually played the original Silent Hill. I've actually played some of the games in the series, the first being Origins, but never the 1999 original. And what I was expecting going into this was a game with stiff PlayStation controls and a plot that mainly exists as a scaffolding for a better sequel. What I was not expecting was a game making confident, weird, and unexpected choices this early on and on hardware this limited. Now, I don't want to sell it as this hidden masterpiece. It's a PlayStation game through and through. It shows its age in specific ways, and I'll get into that pretty soon. But overall, I'm genuinely pleasantly surprised, and that surprise is actually worth breaking down. Now let's start off with the atmosphere. Everyone mentions the fog first, and honestly, that's fair. And that fog is a part of the core identity of the franchise. But in the beginning, the PlayStation couldn't render much draw distance, so the devs wrapped the town in dense fog to hide the pop-in. This happy accident became the single most recognizable image in the entire series. This is genuinely elegant design, so kudos to the devs. In this world, you can't see far in this town, and you never could. The game never lets you forget it. Then, on the flip side, there's the other world. A siren goes off, and after you've heard it enough times, your body physically braces for it. The ordinary foggy town gets swapped for a corroded industrial version of the same buildings. Rust instead of paint, chain link instead of drywall, blood where blood has no business being. The game rarely tells you what's happening, it just lets the metal do the talking. Sound is carrying just as much weight here, maybe more, because in fog this thick, your ears become your primary sense. The score is industrial and ambient rather than melodic, scraping textures, distant clangs, so when actual melody shows up, it hits like a held breath finally let go. And here's what I think gets slept on. The town is ordinary. It's not a haunted castle, it's a school, a hospital, a cheap motel, an amusement park, the most unremarkable of buildings imaginable. And that's exactly why it works. You're scared that the places you normally trust have something wrong living underneath them, and always did. Even the murky, low-poly visuals aren't just a limitation. They're honest to a story filtered through the memory and trauma of a kid's fractured sense of her own life. Now it's time to talk about the gameplay. And the gameplay is where the game shows its age the most. While the technical limitations existed, I think some of that might have been on purpose. Harry doesn't move with any grace, loose swings, and mediocre aim, but that's because Harry Mason is a writer, a widowed dad, not a soldier, not a cop. He has absolutely no business being good in a fight, and the controls make sure you never forget that. And this friction is actually doing character work. It's telling you mechanically that this guy is completely out of his depth. The game rarely lets you feel mastery, it lets you feel survival, which is much scarier. The camera does similar work, blind corners, weird angles that are fixed, and just stuff you can't see behind you. It's disorienting in a way that keeps a low constant unease running even through the rooms you've already cleared. The radio, however, might be the smartest single mechanical idea in the entire game. Static gets louder as something dangerous gets closer. It's a very simple idea, but it has a huge effect. The puzzles are built out of poems, riddles, half-legible notes, symbolic objects, and get this, you can set your combat difficulty and your puzzle difficulty completely separately. And I have to say, for $19.99, that's a level of accommodation plenty of modern games still don't bother with. Structurally, you walk the exact same map twice. First the normal map, the foggy Silent Hill, and second the other world, bringing with it different layouts and different threats. This makes you appreciate how efficient the devs were with the limitations they were working with. Alright, now let's talk about the plot, and this is where the game earns most of the credit, honestly. It opens dead simple. A dad crashes his car, swerving to avoid a girl standing in the road. wakes up alone and searches the town for his missing daughter. That's the whole hook at first. Then slowly through notes and drawers, names overhead, memories that clearly aren't even his, the real shape comes into focus. An occult conspiracy's been running this town for decades. A drug trade keeps everyone compliant, and at the center of it, a 7-year-old who's been isolated, abused, and groomed toward a role she never agreed to. Harry himself is doing more work than he gets credit for. He's not a chosen one. If anything, the cult wants him specifically because he's a tool that they can steer through his love for his daughter. What makes him work isn't competence. It's that his devotion is completely unconditional and completely unremarkable. Any parent could feel this. That's what keeps a cosmic cult plot feeling human instead of abstract. The side characters each represent a different flavor of complicity. Sybil spends most of the game refusing to believe what's actually happening. A quiet comment on how easy denial is when the alternative's too disturbing. Kaufman is straight up corrupt, running an illegal drug operation out of the hospital he's supposed to be running honestly. And he still eventually turns on the cult leader once he realizes he's been used, which gives him kind of a redemption arc that's messy and self-serving instead of heroic. And honestly, it's just more believable for it. Lisa Garland might be the saddest of the bunch, a caretaker turned addict, blackmailed into silence, trapped by circumstances, right up until the story reveals exactly how literal that trap has been the whole time. And then there's Alessa. The smartest decision this game makes is refusing to introduce her as either a monster or a damsel until you've actually earned the reason she's neither. Every single creature you fight turns out to be built from some piece of her inner life. Her fear of dogs, her disgust at insects, the classmates who tormented her, rendered her as small, clawing, childlike things. It would have been so easy to just throw a bunch of unrelated creepy monsters at you. Instead, almost every one of them is, in hindsight, a specific piece of one kid's pain. So the entire time you were walking through somebody's memory of being afraid. The cryptic older woman who's offering Harry a way to fix everything? Yeah, turns out she's the one orchestrating most of his suffering. The ghost child he's warned to fear? She's the actual victim. Not exactly a shocking twist by today's standards, but it's still worth remembering how early and how confidently this game commits to it, and it trusts you to piece it together from notes and fragments instead of spelling it out. Even the ending structure deserves more credit than it gets. Small choices across the whole game quietly determine which ending you land on. From a genuinely hopeful one all the way down to a bleak implication that the entire story was a dying man's last delusion after his crash, with a joke ending tacked on at the very end just so nobody takes the whole thing too preciously. That's very true to what this series would keep doing for the rest of its run, holding real sincerity and real camp in the same hand. But here's what actually makes it land. It's not the cult stuff, not the demon birth plot machinery, even though that's what dominates the wikis and the video essays, this one included. Underneath all of it, this is a story about a school, a hospital, a police department, a church, and a family, each one individually failing a single child, and that failure becoming literally visible, reshaping an entire town's geography around one girl's unaddressed pain. The horror was never really the cult, or the god, or the thing waiting at the very end. The horror was the sentence sitting underneath all of it. Everyone around her could have done something, and almost none of them did. So look, if you've played Silent Hill 2 and never circled back to the original, I get it, I sat on it for years too. But a rough draft is not the way to describe this game. It's not doing a lesser version of what its sequel does. It does something that's adjacent and entirely its own, trading one man's private guilt for a whole town's structural failure, and somehow making both hit just as hard. Leave a like, subscribe, it helps me out a lot, and until next time.